Hey, it's Alex Morowski, the host of In Pursuit of Purpose. And right now, I am actually on the phone with Mrs. Meridith Elliot Powell. She's an award winning author, a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, and a business strategist. She specializes in uncertainty because she believes when leveraged correctly, uncertainty can be your biggest advantage. So, Mrs. Powell, thank you for being here with us today. Just go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what your journey has looked like to get you where you are right now.
Yeah, Meredith Elliot Powell. I'm a business growth strategist, award-winning author, Hall of Fame keynote speaker, and my passion in life is to help businesses and leaders and individuals, for that matter, learn to turn uncertainty to their greatest competitive advantage.
And you own your own business now, correct?
I do. I started my business back in 2004. I do a little bit of consulting work, strategy work for companies, as well as coaching and keynote speaking.
And what services does your company provide? Because I know that your topic of expertise is turning uncertainty into your biggest advantage. So, do you help people turn uncertainty into certainty, or what does your coaching process look like with your clients?
Yeah, so basically in my coaching work, I help leaders as well as individual contributors learn to strategically grow their companies in heavily disruptive and constantly shifting marketplaces.
That sounds like a very unique industry. So I'm curious, what is the market like? Do you have a lot of competitors in this field?
I don't have a lot of people that claim that their expertise is in this area, but I would say that for the most part, a lot of my competitors are working with organizations, helping them. I think the difference between me and my competitors is most of my competitors help people manage change, and I help people learn to predict it.
Totally understand because obviously there's a lot of competitors in the field and industry of professional speaking and publishing books and business consulting. But I'm not surprised that there's not a lot of people who claim their expertise is in uncertainty. And I think that's what makes you super unique. I've heard you speak, and I can tell that you are an expert on uncertainty. But because of how niche this field is, I'm curious, how did you get into it and where did you learn your information on uncertainty? Was it more experience? Was it more education? Was it a mix of both? Where did you get your knowledge on this subject?
Oh, I'd say it's a little bit of all of the above. My background is I'm a master certified strategic planner. I've got my college education. I've got an MBA as well as certified coach. But really, it was the experience that brought me into this subject. Back in 2016, I was working with clients and always when I work with clients, I ask the question, how's business? How are things going? And everybody I was interviewing answered the same. They were having their best year on record, but they were very worried about the uncertainty. They knew something was coming. We didn't know it was COVID, but the thing about business is that you have good times and you have bad times. And our fear of the bad times, I recognize, was preventing us from both capitalizing as much as we could on good economic times, but finding opportunity in disruption. So what made me an expert was back in 2016, I started researching, studying quantitative and qualitative research to really determine how to use uncertainty to make it a competitive advantage and how to prepare individuals and teams for disruption and growth.
So, obviously, this is what you do for a living. So, I don't want you to share too much of your content, but how can somebody use uncertainty as their biggest advantage? What have you found out about uncertainty that other people don't seem to get?
Yeah, it's first of all, I'll share all of my content. I never have any problem sharing anything I'm learned. I'm a very mission driven business strategist. But what I discovered in my research is that it's a 9-step formula. What I did was study companies and organizations that had thrived in uncertainty. They'd been through economic depression, world wars. And I studied some of the biggest disruptions that we've seen in history and those businesses that thrived through it, not just through one of them, but through all of them. And from that, I pulled a 9-step proven formula. It's 9 strategies that I can guarantee. It's my methodology. It's my system that if you put it in place, it's going to help you consistently turn uncertainty to competitive advantage. But where it begins is with mindset. I mean, you have to literally begin by shifting how you think, feel, and act around uncertainty. Because if you view uncertainty as a negative, it produces one emotion, and the emotion it produces is fear. Now, the neuroscience around fear is that when fear is present, it shuts down your ability to innovate and create the very skills that you need to turn uncertainty to competitive advantage. Because the only way to thrive through uncertainty is to take a problem and come up with a creative solution around it.
So, talking about mindset and perspective, I know that there are people out there, maybe even the person listening to this podcast episode, that feel like there is no way out of their current situation. No matter how hard they try to adjust their mindset or their perspective, they feel like they are stuck. You try and give these people advice like, hey, you should try this, or try seeing it this way. And they say, I try everything and nothing seems to work. I know I've been there. In the past, I have said those things. I have felt those feelings. I have been in that situation. But for the person listening to this that might be feeling like there is no way out, that they can't change their mindset, what advice do you have for them? How can somebody adjust their perspective onto something that they can't see?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Number one is the one thing everybody can do is create a vision for themselves.
Mm.
Where do you see your life, a year from now? The problem is that it isn't, we don't struggle with creating a vision. We just think that we have to know how to get there. And the truth is we don't. What I do with my clients is I'll say, let's craft a vision. Tell me where you want to be with your life 1 year from now, what kind of job you want to have, what kind of health you want to be in, what kind of relationship you want to have, what you want your financial situation to be. Just write it out. And then I tell people to focus on that 3 times a day. 3 times a day. Read it to yourself, visualize it, feel it in your bones. Because the truth about the mind is the mind will find what it focuses on. The other exercise I like to do with people, it's understandable. I mean, when we think about, I mean, imagine if I were $100,000 in debt and this time next year I want to be financially solvent. It's understandable. My mind would fill with a million reasons why I can't. So often I have my clients write down uh, all the things that they're worried about, all the things that they feel like they cannot control, and then write down the things that they feel like they can control. And then basically divide them into 2 piles. In one pile, what you can't control, and the other pile, what you can. And then we focus all of our attention on what we can control and we forget about the rest. Where people get messed up is, again, believing that you have to know the how, and the truth is you don't.
So let's say somebody has a vision for their life. They know where they want to go. They know who they want to become, but they don't know how to actually get there. I think you would agree that that's a great place to start. Because you just talked about how you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need that vision to give you some sense of direction. But let's say somebody's in that spot, they know where they want to go, they know who they want to be, but they don't know how to get there. What is that person's first step towards something they don't know how to do?
Well, they have to determine what that first step is. You have to decide what's one action we can take. Let's
Okay.
say I'm $100,000 in debt and I want to be $100,000. I want to be financially solvent. I don't want to be in debt this time next year. So you would look at that, you would say, what's one step I could take? Maybe one step I could take is I won't buy a coffee at Starbucks this week.
Mm.
Maybe another step I could take is I'll put another $10 on my credit card.
So,
Those are the steps I can take. Make sense?
yes, that makes perfect sense. You don't need to have the whole plan figured out. You just need a vision to give you a sense of direction, and B, the vulnerability to take one step in that direction to get the ball rolling.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because if you take your big goal, your ultimate vision for your life, and you break it up into a bunch of first steps, then you just took your big goal and broke it into hundreds of small goals, which is so much more easy to accomplish than one big goal. Because it is great to dream big and shoot for the stars, but sometimes our big goals can overwhelm us because we feel like we need one step to get us from start to finish. But if we chunk up our goals into smaller, more accomplishable goals, then one step will soon lead to 2 steps, to 3, to 4, and it just snowballs on each other. And then the snowball picks up speed, and next thing you know, you're 100 steps down the line, all because you chose to take it one step at a time.
So when you don't buy that cup of coffee at Starbucks and you make a cup of coffee at home, you feel better about yourself. And when you feel better about yourself, you build that little bit of confidence. And when you build that little bit of confidence, the next thing you do is you go, well, you know what? I'll get a glass of water when I go through the drive-through at McDonald's. I won't buy a Coke. And things just start multiplying, you know? And so it's just take action. So you know what you want. And then you ask yourself, like, let's assume I wanted to lose 50 pounds. Well, if I say I'm going to work out 3 hours a day and I'm not going to eat any carbs and I'm not going to eat any fat, that'll last one day. But if I just decide this week, one day I'm going to order the hummus and vegetables rather than order a side of fries. And maybe instead of parking in front of the store, I'll park all the way at the end and get more steps in. It, those things just become cumulative and you start making progress.
You know, talking about this, it puts 2 quotes in my mind. There are 2 quotes that I have heard of that are in my head right now. And the first is from a book called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it goes, when the big things seem out of your control, focus on what's beneath your nose. And I think that's so important in this conversation because when we have these big, mighty dreams and visions for our lives, it can be hard to grasp what we need to actually do to make these dreams a reality. Like you said, if the goal was 50 pounds, how in the world do we lose 50 pounds? It seems so unattainable. But if the goal was order the hummus instead of fries, park further away from the store to get more steps in, or even I'm going to try and lose a pound a week over the next 50 weeks. Well, if you told someone lose 50 pounds, they're going to stare at you like, how do I do that? But if you tell somebody lose 1 pound a week, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, I can do that. That's attainable. That's what it looks like to focus on what's beneath your nose. Focus on what you can do right now to make a little bit of progress towards your end goal. And then the second quote that comes to mind is, if you can't shoot big, shoot small. And I think that's a hard quote for people to actually accept because we are so conditioned to these phrases: dream big, shoot for the stars. And those are great sayings. Those are great things to live by. But we have taken the quote dream big and have applied our own added definition on top of that. Because we think in order to dream big, we have to act big. And that's not necessarily correct. I think the better way to put it is dream big and act small over and over and over and over again until your big dreams become reality.
Yeah, it's exactly right. You still get to have your dreams. In fact, but you just there we cannot overwhelm ourselves in trying to achieve them.
Mm.
You know? And again, the truth is, because you don't know how you're going to get there. I mean, look at you. You wound up at High Point University. If you'd have written that on a goal, you'd been like, oh my God, I can't possibly get myself back. That makes no sense. I'm from Oklahoma. I mean, it doesn't but the truth was you wanted something and your mind kept taking steps to get to that. And the truth is you wound up not only achieving a dream, but you wound up achieving a bigger dream than you were even capable of dreaming.
So when you take your goal and you chunk it up into smaller goals, you're actually able to achieve more than the original goal said you could. You end up surpassing your goal by taking smaller steps to get there instead of trying to leap to the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is you got to realize that the mind is something that has to be, you got to get it in shape. Like if you're, I don't know, what you do to keep yourself healthy, but you'll have to work at it every day, whether it's like I work on keeping my mind focused positive the same way I do brushing my teeth. It's something I do consistently all day long because I have days when I get up going, oh my God, that's not, how am I possibly going to get there? My God, I mean, you know, this obstacle hit my way. I don't think good things are going to happen for me.
Yeah.
The mind's programmed for negativity because it's programmed to protect us,
Yeah.
you know? And so you got to work at it.
I
And
love.
the beauty of that, I'm going to say now, be quiet, is the beauty of it is that you control that.
Yeah.
You control how many times a day you brush your teeth. You control how many times a day you work on keeping your mind positive.
I absolutely love everything that you're saying. And I agree with you 100%. And these are all things that I try and live by. But for the listener that might understand but not comprehend, meaning for the person listening to this that says, I know what you mean, your analogies make sense, but I don't know how to put this into action. I don't know how to live this out. I don't know what it looks like for me to break my goals up. I want to give that listener a real world example so they can see how we have applied this to our lives. So, Mrs. Powell, you started your own business, and I'm sure today you are far past your initial plan and vision for where you would be in your career. But can you talk to me a little bit about how you broke up your goal of starting your own business to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I had this, it's funny. I've got a vision board in my bedroom, and that was the very first thing that I did. Now I didn't just create a vision for my company. I created a vision for my life. I knew what I wanted my marriage to look like, what our relationship with our kids and our family wanted to look like, what kind of friend relationships we wanted to have, what we wanted our health, and our spirituality and giving back. So my board reflects all of that. But on my vision board, I put down all the things that I wanted. I mean, I wanted to be a Hall of Fame. No, I didn't. I wanted to be a certified speaking professional.
Mm.
I'd never heard of a Hall of Fame speaker. That was out of my realm. But I remember thinking, oh my God, I'll never be able to get my CSP, certified speaking professional. I wanted to be like a known expert in the field. I wanted to be an author, and I'd never written a book before in my life. So I just wrote those things down. And then I would look at it every day, 3 times a day, and I would say, what's a step that I needed to take in that direction? Like, I joined the National Speakers Association. And at the National Speakers Association, I went and joined a group of authors because I wanted to know how you became, an author. I wanted to be a better speaker and an influencer in the industry. So I volunteered, and I just started to give back to my association, because it was from there that maybe I could learn certain things,
Mm.
and so it was in those directions. And I wanted to be somebody who had, my first husband passed away. And so in my second marriage, I wanted to have a really long, healthy, happy marriage. So I would write down every day that I would do something nice for my husband every day. And like, on my goals right now is I make sure that even though our kids are grown and our families all over the place, that once a week, we'd reach out and have some kind of family connection, you know? So
Yeah.
it's those little things. I'm just taking little steps all over the place, but somehow all of that, like if you look at my vision board that I created in 2004, I've surpassed every single one of them. My goal was to become a certified speaking professional, which I did, but I also got my Speaker Hall of Fame, which was bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. My point is, I just kept taking steps, and I didn't write one book, I've written 11. But if you'd have told me I had to write 11 books, you'd have freaked me out. I would have never gotten started. you know?
Yeah, I mean, even your 11 books. You say you took it one book at a time. I'd even say that you took it one page at a time.
Right, right.
And you went so much further than you could have ever imagined yourself going. So,
Exactly.
so in this process of taking steps towards your goals, I'm sure there were high times, and I'm sure there were plenty of low times. So I kind of have a two-part question for you. I'm curious, what would you consider to be one of your biggest achievements and why? And the second part is, what would you consider to be one of your biggest failures or obstacles or setbacks? And how did you respond to this setback or failure? And what did you learn from it? And you can answer either part first.
Yeah, I'll start with my biggest achievement, and my biggest achievement, the thing that I am most proud of, is that I have built a highly successful business while at the same time creating an even more successful personal life. I see far too often people who do what I do for a living and achieve what I do for a living let their health go, let their relationships go, and let their friendships go. I'm fiercely protective of my personal life, and I have a big life outside of my business. So that is what I am most. That is what I'm most proud of, and I think my personal life fuels my business life success, and vice versa. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that to summarize what you just said, you were very proud of how well you've remained balanced.
Yes, very, very, very. I'm a big believer that you really can have it all, and
Mm.
I do. And that takes a lot of work, but I didn't early on in my career, I got a huge promotion that I had worked very hard for when I worked in corporate. And I walked into that office and got that promotion and realized that I didn't want that job. I didn't want to live in that city, and I'd sacrificed my personal life to achieve my business goals. And I made a decision in my 30s, I would never do that again.
Mm.
So that is what I'm most. And then probably the biggest challenge, other than starting a business. I think the thing that starts you from saving a business and starting a business is you're so naive. You don't know what you're getting into. That ignorance works for you. Um, but the biggest challenge, bar none, is when the whole business blew up during COVID. Literally in a matter of 30 days, my entire every ounce of revenue I had for the year disappeared. And then the way I make a living disappeared. You couldn't get on planes. You couldn't engage with people. I couldn't do any of the things that I do for a living. And getting through that is probably, one of my greatest challenges. But luckily for me, I was born to one of the most amazing women in the world. And my mother was just phenomenal. My dad was great too, but my mother was just phenomenal. My mother had all these great sayings. And she used to say the fastest way to get past your own problems is to focus on somebody else's. And she said, sitting around feeling sorry for yourself is a waste of your time and a waste of your energy. Find somebody who's in worse trouble than you and help them. And from there, you'll find your path. And so that's how I got through COVID. And I ended up crazy enough having my best year on record, at that point. But I just started calling all my clients, people who I knew were in worse trouble than I am. At least I had a husband that worked. I had a roof over my head. We didn't have kids at home at the time. I mean, I was really lucky. And I just started focusing on them. And from there, I found my path.
I love what you shared about what your mom told you growing up. If you don't know how to get out of your problem, focus on somebody else's. And that doesn't seem right at first, but the way you explained it makes perfect sense. Because we will face a lot of problems in life, but when we do, our first natural response is never to help somebody else out. When we face problems, we want help. We put the focus on us. And that does nothing but magnify the problem. This is what life is all about, giving back and helping each other in times of need, even when you're in a time of need yourself. It doesn't seem like the right thing to do, but it really is a step out of your problem and into freedom. It reminds me of this one quote I heard. I don't have it memorized, but I'll paraphrase it. It said something like, "Why do you complain about your bad days? There are people out there begging to have your worst days." But I also love what you said about your biggest challenge. And it was kind of ironic to hear that in this time of uncertainty, when COVID wrecked your business and you had no clue what the future held, you had to kind of take your own advice and use the information that you teach others about uncertainty to turn your own uncertainty into your biggest advantage.
Yes. Yeah. It was, what was funny was I had to turn around and drink my own Kool-Aid, right? Like, I was like, holy, I better put this stuff to work, and until COVID hit, I didn't even know if my methodology, I'd never there's nothing like practicing it for yourself. So again, it's another thing of COVID looked like my darkest hour and it turned into my greatest opportunity.
Yeah, and it's amazing to hear, it really is. Your story is so inspiring because so many people are trapped by what they don't know. They have lost sight of what they do know and therefore no longer know what they can really accomplish. But I know you're running short on time. We're about to wrap up. I have two more quick questions for you. The first is about your industry. Maybe not the uncertainty industry, but the professional speaking and the book publishing industry. I'm curious, what do you think is the long-term outlook for this industry? How do you see it changing? And how can somebody looking to enter the industry of writing books and giving speeches for a living, doing consulting work with businesses and individuals, how can somebody succeed and excel in this industry in today's world?
Yeah, I think the outlook is really good for this profession, is that people are always going to need thought leaders. They're always going to need people who can motivate them, and people who can give them the tools and the strategies that they need to be successful. But I think the challenge of this industry is that information is no longer an issue, right? We all have more information than we can possibly use. There's nothing I can't Google, get an answer to. There's nothing I can't put into Chat GPT and get a formula and a strategy for. So I think the challenge of people who do this for a living, make their living according to the spoken or the written word, is that have you done the work to do what it takes to motivate people to action? Because that's your value. That's what you do that Chat GPT can't do, and that a computer can't do, and AI will never be able to do. And so can you hone your craft in a way that you can motivate people to do what seems impossible? I mean, I read a statistic the other day that our gym memberships have doubled in this country, doubled. Yet we have more obese people than we have ever had in our lives. So it isn't access to the tools, it isn't access to the information. It's getting people to take action, and that's, to me, that's a human to human connection. And that's the value you have if you do this. But it's a challenge. It's different than it's been in the past.
So, the big question for somebody looking to enter this industry of writing, of speaking, and of coaching is not can you inform people, but can you inspire people?
Right, very much so.
All right, I have one more question for you. It's very broad, it's very open-ended. You can answer it however you want to. It's simple, it's short. But for the person listening to this podcast right now, Mrs. Powell, what is your final piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Yeah, my best piece of advice, bar none, it's always my best piece of advice, is that it is build your network. It will literally change your life. Strongest thing you can ever do in the world is learn to talk to strangers.
And why do you think so many people are scared to talk to strangers?
Well, I think that, first of all, I mean, didn't your mother raise you not to talk to strangers? So that's part of it.
Mm.
The other is it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's pushing us out of our comfort zones, and we don't like to be out of our comfort zones. Add social media, add things to that. I mean, I can talk to people by just writing an email. I don't have to engage in conversation. The funny thing about that, though, is that think about the time that you have reached out and talked to a stranger. You've started a conversation with the person on you next to a plane. You've helped somebody who's lost looking for directions or something. And it's almost always been a positive. It has rarely been a negative. So I just think it's just like uncertainty. We have decided that it's uncomfortable and decided that it's negative. Shift your mindset around it. The most successful, the happiest, the least stressed, the luckiest people in the world are the most connected.
Awesome. Well, Mrs. Powell, we are out of time today, but I just want to say thank you for taking the time to call me today to talk about uncertainty and to share your story and your knowledge and your experiences with me today. It's all greatly appreciated, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much. And
All right.
I enjoyed the conversation as well.
And to the listener today, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Mrs. Meridith Elliot Powell. I want you to know that you have a purpose and you can live it out. And when leveraged correctly, uncertainty can be your biggest advantage. You don't need to have it all figured out. Just have a vision for yourself to give you a sense of direction, and have the vulnerability to take the first step in that direction. Have a great day.